The night was quiet in the small city street. Only the sound of footsteps and distant voices filled the air. A human man named Daniel walked out of a diner holding a small box of leftovers. He had eaten enough, and the rest was not much, but he never liked wasting food. Daniel looked around. The city had many dark alleys where stray dogs and cats searched for scraps. He bent down near a trash bin and placed the box carefully on the ground. He whispered softly, as if speaking to unseen listeners, "Here you go, little ones." For a moment he expected to hear the quick steps of paws or the soft cry of kittens, but nothing moved. The alley was too silent. Daniel stood up and turned, ready to walk away, when he felt something strange. It was not the silence, it was the feeling of eyes watching him. He slowly turned his head back toward the shadows. His eyes adjusted to the dim light of the street lamp. At first, he thought they were 3 children, standing very still near the wall. Their bodies looked thin, almost too thin, and their clothes were torn like rags. Then his breath caught. These were not human children. Their skin was pale with a faint silver glow, and their large eyes reflected. The light like glass, their faces were delicate, almost too perfect, and yet filled with hunger and fear. Daniel froze. He had never seen anything like this so close before. Aliens were not unknown in the galaxy. But here, in this forgotten alley, 3 alien girls stood trembling, staring at the box of food as if it was the most precious thing in the world. The girls did not move closer. Their eyes darted between Daniel and the box. Their thin hands clenched together as if holding each other for strength. The tallest one whispered something in a strange tongue, her voice soft like a broken flute. Daniel could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Hunger, desperation, fear. For a long second, nobody moved. The air itself felt heavy. Daniel's heart began to race. He took a careful step back, trying not to scare them. He pointed to the box and said gently, "It's for you. If you're hungry, take it." The girls flinched at his voice. Their bodies pressed tighter to the wall, but their eyes burned with hunger. The smallest one, no more than 7 by human guess, licked her lips without realizing it. The middle one pulled her back quickly, shaking her head. Daniel could see it clearly now. They were starving, their cheeks were hollow, and their legs trembled under the weight of their own bodies. Still, they were afraid. Afraid of him. Afraid of being caught. He took another step back and lifted his hands to show he meant no harm. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "Eat, please." The tallest one looked at the other 2. Her lips moved again in that strange alien language. This time her voice cracked like someone holding back tears. Slowly, with shaky steps, she moved forward. The other 2 followed close. Their wide eyes never leaving Daniel's face, they stopped just a few feet from the box. Their thin fingers stretched out, then pulled back as if expecting it to vanish. Finally, the smallest one dropped to her knees and touched the food. Her eyes lit up with both fear and hope. Daniel's chest tightened. He watched silently as the 3 alien girls began to eat. They did not eat like children should, with joy and play. They ate like survivors, each bite desperate, each swallow painful, as if their bodies had forgotten what real food was. For the first time, Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. These were not just lost girls. They were something more, and their presence here was not simple. Somewhere in the shadows of this city, a dangerous story was waiting to begin, and Daniel had just stepped into it. Daniel leaned against the brick wall, watching the 3 alien girls eat in silence. The small box of leftovers was not much, just some rice, bread, and a piece of chicken, but to them it seemed like a feast. Their thin hands moved quickly, dividing each bite as if they feared someone might snatch it away. The smallest one coughed while swallowing too fast. The middle girl gently patted her back, whispering something. In their strange tongue, Daniel could not understand their words, but he could feel the bond between them. They were not just strangers, they were sisters. For a moment, Daniel wondered where their parents were. What kind of world left 3 alien children wandering in human alleys, starving like this? He wanted to ask, but he knew his questions would only frighten them, so he stayed quiet, letting them eat. When the last piece of bread was gone, The girls did not move right away. They sat there, breathing heavily, their large glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. It was as if they were waiting for his next action, unsure if he was friend or enemy. The tallest one, who seemed no older than 12 by human measure, finally stood. Her silver eyes stared at Daniel with sharp caution. She whispered, a word that sounded like "why." In broken human speech, Daniel blinked, surprised. "Why what?" he asked softly. "Why, give food," she managed. Her voice was shaky, as if every word was a battle. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Because you were hungry," he said. "That's all." The girl tilted her head, studying him as though his answer made no sense. To her, kindness was not something expected. Kindness was something strange, almost dangerous. The middle sister pulled at the oldest one's torn sleeve, whispering urgently in their alien tongue. Daniel caught only the sound, sharp and fearful. The little one clung to both of them, her wide eyes darting around the alley as if expecting something or someone to appear. Daniel realized then that their fear was not of him, not really. It was of something else, something that could arrive any moment. The night air grew colder. A light breeze carried the smell of the city, metal, smoke, and something bitter. The girls suddenly pressed closer together. Their bodies stiffened and their glowing eyes turned toward the mouth of the alley. Daniel followed their gaze, but the street looked empty. Still, the way they trembled told him enough. Someone had been chasing them, and they feared that person might still be near. "Are you being hunted?" Daniel asked quietly. The girls did not answer, but their silence was answer enough. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. He was just an ordinary man, a worker who had finished his shift and wanted nothing more than rest. But now, 3 alien girls were staring at him as if he was their only shield. The oldest one stepped forward, her thin body blocking the younger 2. She looked at him again with those glowing eyes and whispered, "Go." She pointed toward the street, urging him to leave. Daniel almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the strange twist of fate. They wanted to protect him from their trouble even though they were the ones starving. "I can't just walk away," he said firmly. "You need help." The words seemed to strike her like a stone. She froze, unsure what to do. The middle sister shook her head wildly, while the smallest clung tighter. From the distance, Daniel suddenly heard footsteps, slow and heavy, not like a passerby, but like a hunter. The sound echoed against the walls of the alley, growing closer. The girls went pale, their silver glow dimming as if even their bodies wanted to hide. The tallest one whispered a desperate command in her language, and the 3 turned as if ready to run. Daniel's heart pounded. He had a choice. Step away and let them vanish, into the dark, or step forward and risk everything. He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the shadows ahead. Something told him this was only the beginning. The footsteps in the distance grew louder, echoing against the walls like a slow drum. Daniel's pulse quickened. He had faced many things in his life: poverty, hard work, loneliness, but never something like this. 3 alien girls, starving and terrified, were about to be hunted, and he stood right in the middle of it. The oldest girl grabbed her sister's hands, ready to pull them deeper into the shadows. Her silver eyes flicked to Daniel one last time. Her lips moved soundlessly, almost begging him to leave, but Daniel stayed rooted. His heart told him that walking away now would haunt him forever. The hunters' shadows appeared first, long and sharp under the streetlight. 2 figures, tall and armored, moved down the street with a slow, careful pace. They were not human police, Daniel could see that clearly. Their armor gleamed with strange markings, and their helmets covered their faces. One of the alien hunters paused and scanned the area. A faint red glow spread from the device on his arm, searching the alley like a predator sniffing the air. The 3 girls pressed against the wall, trembling. Daniel could almost feel their fear like a cold wave. He had no weapon, no plan, just instinct. Still, something inside him refused to let the hunters take them. He remembered the way the youngest had coughed while eating, the way the middle sister had protected her, and the way the oldest had tried to speak human words. They were just children, and children should never face this kind of terror. Daniel's mind raced. The hunters would spot them any second. He had to decide, either run and save himself or take a risk that could change everything. He stepped forward. Right into the mouth of the alley, his voice was steady even though his chest pounded. "Evening," he called out, sounding casual. "You two looking for something?" The hunters froze. Their glowing red scanners dimmed. They turned their helmeted heads toward him. Daniel forced himself to look calm, though sweat ran down his back. "This is private area," one of them said in a metallic voice. "Leave," Daniel shrugged. "Funny, I thought it was just an alley." He made a show of stepping aside as if blocking their view. His body stood between them and the alien girls still hidden in the shadows. The hunters exchanged a glance. They did not trust him. He could feel their suspicion pressing down like a weight. One of them stepped closer, boots heavy on the ground. The red scanner flickered again, aiming straight at Daniel. "Move," the hunter ordered. Daniel lifted his hands slightly, palms out. "Sure, I'll move," he said. His voice was calm, but his mind raced. He needed time, just a few seconds more, enough for the girls to slip away. Behind him, he felt a soft tug on his jacket. The smallest girl had reached out, trembling. She whispered, something in her alien tongue so soft only he could hear. It was not fear in her voice, it was trust. Daniel clenched his jaw. That was it. The moment he knew. He could not leave them. He had to protect them, no matter the cost. The hunter raised, a hand as if ready to push him aside. Daniel acted before he could think. He kicked the empty food box toward the street. The noise startled the hunters for half a second. In that instant, Daniel whispered sharply to the girls, "Run!" The sisters bolted deeper into the alley, their bare feet light against the ground. The hunters snapped their heads, realizing too late what had happened. Daniel stepped in their way again, forcing them to look at him first. "Sorry, wrong alley," he said, his voice dripping with false bravado. The hunters growled something in their language and pushed forward. Daniel's heart hammered. He had no weapon, no backup, but he had made his choice. He would stand between the hunters and the three alien girls. Whatever happened next, he was not walking away. The three alien girls disappeared deeper into the maze of alleys, their thin figures vanishing like shadows. Daniel stayed behind, blocking the hunters with his body. His chest burned with fear, but he did not move aside. The hunters glared at him through their dark helmets. One raised a hand device that pulsed with a strange light, scanning Daniel from head to toe. "Human," the metallic voice hissed. "Irrelevant. Step away." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I think you're the ones in the wrong place," he said. His tone was steady, but his fists were clenched tight. The hunters ignored his words. They pushed past him, following the faint trail left by the girls. Daniel reached out and grabbed one by the arm. The armor felt cold and hard under his hand. The hunter spun, lifting him with one hand like he weighed nothing. Daniel gasped as his back hit the wall. "You interfere," the voice growled. The hunter's grip tightened. Pain shot through Daniel's chest, but even in pain, he forced a smile. "Yeah, that's kind of the point." The smallest sound broke the tension, bare feet splashing in a puddle deeper in the alley. The hunters snapped their heads toward the noise. The girls had not run far enough. They were still too close, hiding in the darkness. Daniel saw them. Three small faces glowing faintly with fear. The oldest pressed the youngest against the wall, whispering for her to stay quiet. The middle sister stared wide-eyed at Daniel as if begging him not to give them away. The hunter dropped Daniel, letting him crash to the ground. They stepped forward, heavy boots echoing. Daniel forced himself to stand, ignoring the pain. His only thought was clear: he had to buy them more time. He stumbled into the path of the hunters again, arms spread. "You'll have to go through me," he said. The hunters hesitated, scanning him again. A human was not a threat, not in their eyes, but his defiance slowed them. That moment was all Daniel needed. "Run," he shouted at the girls. His voice echoed through the narrow space. The oldest grabbed her sisters and pulled them into another turn of the alley. Their glowing eyes vanished behind the darkness. The hunters snarled in their alien tongue and shoved Daniel aside. But he grabbed a loose metal pipe from the ground and swung it hard. The strike clanged against one hunter's armor. useless in damage but loud enough to ring through the night. The sound drew attention. Windows above opened slightly. Human faces. Peeking out, lights flickered on. The hunters froze, realizing eyes were now watching from above. They could not risk being seen taking alien children, not in a city full of humans. One hunter shoved Daniel down again, hard. His head spun. His vision blurred, but when he looked up, the hunters were pulling back, retreating into the shadows. Their forms melted into the darkness of the far street. The red glow of their scanners faded until only silence remained. Daniel lay on the cold ground, gasping for breath. His body ached, but his heart hammered with one thought. The girls had escaped, at least for now. He dragged himself up, following the direction they had run. The alleys twisted and turned, old walls covered in graffiti, broken pipes dripping. Every corner felt alive with hidden danger. But Daniel pressed forward. Finally, he spotted them, crouched in a ruined courtyard at the end of the alley chain. They huddled together, shivering. The oldest looked up as he approached. Her silver eyes were full of both fear and something new. "Trust, Daniel." Sat down slowly, giving them space. "They're gone for now," he whispered. "But you can't stay here, whoever those hunters are. They won't stop." The middle sister hugged the youngest tightly. The little one whimpered softly, her glowing eyes wet with tears. The oldest stared at Daniel for a long time, as if weighing his soul. Finally, she whispered in broken human speech, "Help us." The word cut through him like a blade. It was not just a request, it was a plea for life. Daniel nodded, breathing hard. "I will," he said. "But you need to show me where you come from, who you are." The alley wind grew colder, carrying silence. For the first time, the oldest girl reached out her trembling hand toward him, a gesture of fragile trust. Daniel took it gently. He did not know what danger lay ahead, but he knew one thing. His life was no longer his own. It was now tied to the fate of these 3 starving strangers hiding in the shadows. The night grew heavier, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Daniel guided the 3 alien girls through the twisting alleys, keeping to the shadows. Their small footsteps echoed lightly against the cracked pavement. Each time the youngest stumbled, Daniel slowed, letting her cling to his arm. He did not know where he was leading them, only that they could not stay in one place too long. The hunters would come back, and next time they would not be so cautious. The oldest girl walked close to him, her silver eyes darting around every corner. She carried herself with a strange mix of fear and strength, like a child forced to grow up too quickly. The middle sister whispered in their alien tongue, her voice soft and full of worry. The youngest stayed silent, too tired and too frightened to speak. Daniel finally stopped near an abandoned warehouse, its walls covered in graffiti and its windows broken. "We'll rest here for a moment," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but inside he felt the weight of danger pressing on all sides. They slipped inside through a broken door. The warehouse smelled of rust and dust. Old crates and broken machines filled the space. Daniel motioned for the girls to stay low. They sat together in the shadows, their glowing eyes dim with exhaustion. For the first time since meeting them, Daniel allowed himself a breath. He crouched nearby, whispering, "Who were those men? Why are they after you?" The oldest girl pressed her lips together. She seemed torn between silence and truth. Finally, in broken human words, she whispered, "Hunters, take us." "Back." "Back where?" Daniel asked. She shook her head, unable to explain more. Her small hand clenched into a fist and her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Before Daniel could ask again, the youngest suddenly gasped. Her glowing eyes widened in terror. Daniel turned sharply. His heart froze. At the far end of the warehouse, a faint red glow flickered. Shadows moved, heavy boots striking the floor. The hunters had found them. The girls clung to each other, trembling. Daniel's mind raced. There was no way out except the broken door they had entered, and it was already blocked. The hunters stepped inside, tall and dark, their armor gleaming. Faintly, one of them raised his scanner. the red beam slicing through the dust-filled air. It stopped on the girls, their silver glow giving them away instantly. The youngest whimpered. The middle one held her tightly. The oldest stood in front of them like a shield, even though she was just a child herself. Daniel's fists clenched. He grabbed a loose iron rod from the ground, his hands shaking. "Stay behind me," he told the girls firmly. The hunters advanced, their metallic voices echoing. "Return. The subject's human. This is not your concern." Daniel stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "They're not your property. They're children." "Subjects," the hunter corrected coldly. "Not children. Move aside or be removed." The tension snapped. The nearest hunter lunged forward. Daniel swung the rod with all his strength. The strike hit the helmet with a loud clang. The hunter staggered for a second but did not fall. The other raised a glowing weapon, something small but deadly. The girls screamed. The sound cut through Daniel's chest like fire. He knew he could not win a fight against armored hunters, but he could not back down. He had to protect them. Then, from outside, a noise broke the moment. Shouts, human voices. People from the neighborhood had followed the sound, curious about the glowing red light in the warehouse. The hunters hesitated, their helmets turning toward the noise. Daniel saw his chance. "Now!" he hissed to the girls. He pushed them toward a side opening in the wall, broken metal barely wide enough to crawl through. The oldest pulled her sisters through first. Daniel followed. His back burned with the thought of a weapon aimed at him, but no shot came. The hunters held back, unwilling to risk exposure in front of human witnesses. They stumbled out into another alley, breathless. The girls clung to Daniel's arms, shaking with fear. Behind them, the warehouse remained silent. But Daniel knew it was not over. The hunters would not stop. Not until they had the three girls in their grasp. Daniel knelt down, meeting the oldest girl's eyes. "They'll keep coming, won't they?" She nodded slowly, her lips trembling as she whispered one word. "Always." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at the three of them, scared, tired, but still alive, and made a silent promise. He would not let them be taken no matter the cost. The night air was heavy with smoke and the smell of frying food as Daniel led the three alien girls toward the heart of the market district. It was late, but the city's night market was still alive. Lanterns glowing, stalls packed with cheap goods, and crowds moving like a restless tide. Daniel pulled the hood of his jacket over his head. "Stay close," he whispered. The girls clung to him, their glowing eyes half hidden beneath torn fabric. They stood out too much, but the market was his only hope. A sea of faces could hide them better than shadows. The moment they entered the crowded street, the noise swallowed them. Voices bargaining, children laughing, the hiss of oil on pans. The girls looked around in awe, fear mixing with wonder. For starving children, the smell of roasted meat and sweet bread was both torture and temptation. Daniel noticed how the youngest stared too long at a vendor's steaming dumplings. Her little hands clenched as if to stop herself from reaching out. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Later. I promise." She blinked at him, then nodded, trusting his words. Behind them, the sound of boots echoed faintly. The hunters had entered the market. Their dark armor and glowing scanners cut through the crowd like blades. People stepped aside nervously, pretending not to notice. No one wanted trouble. Daniel's chest tightened. He pushed the girls deeper into the market, weaving through stalls of colorful fabrics and crates of glowing fruit from distant colonies. "This way," he urged, keeping his eyes sharp. The middle sister stumbled, nearly falling. Daniel caught her quickly, but the stumble drew attention. A red scanner beam flicked across the crowd, sweeping dangerously close. The hunters were closing in. Thinking fast, Daniel guided them to a spice stall, grabbing a handful of red powder. He tossed it into the air as the scanner swept past. The cloud of dust blinded the glow for a moment. The vendor cursed, but Daniel shoved a few credits into his hand and rushed on, pulling the girls with him. The oldest girl whispered urgently in her alien tongue, her words sharp and fast. Daniel could not understand, but he knew she was warning him. The hunters were spreading out, cutting off exits. His heart pounded. He scanned the market and spotted a narrow path between two stalls, a shortcut leading toward the old canals. "This way," he said firmly, pulling them into the gap. The alley was cramped, walls pressing close. The girls squeezed through first. Daniel followed. The hunters' voices boomed behind them, ordering people to move aside. The crowd's panic grew, cries rising as armored figures pushed through. Daniel and the girls burst out onto another street, smaller and darker, lined with fish stalls. The smell of salt and rot filled the air. The crowd was thinner here, but the hunters were close. Daniel's mind raced. He spotted a cart filled with old cloth and quickly pulled the girls behind it, crouching low. The hunters' scanners swept past the street, their red light cutting through smoke and dust. Daniel held his breath, every muscle tense. The youngest girl trembled against him. He wrapped his arm around her, whispering, "Shh, stay still." The middle sister pressed her, face into her sister's shoulder. The oldest gripped Daniel's sleeve tightly, her eyes locked on the glowing beams. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, the scanners moved on. The hunters passed without spotting them. For now, they were safe. Daniel let out a slow breath. "We can't keep running like this," he muttered. The girls looked at him with wide eyes, silent but trusting. He knew the truth. Sooner or later, the hunters would corner them again. They needed more than hiding. They needed answers. Daniel stood and offered his hand to the oldest girl. "If I'm going to protect you," he said, softly, "you have to tell me why they're chasing you. Who are you, really?" The alley grew silent. The three sisters exchanged a fearful glance. Finally, the oldest lowered her head and whispered, "Not ordinary. Not safe." Daniel stared at her, realization slowly dawning. These were not just lost children, they carried a secret that could shake everything. The alley was quiet now. Only the distant noise of the market reached them. Daniel crouched beside the three alien girls, his face serious. He had risked everything for them, but still he did not know the truth. The oldest girl sat close to her sisters, her silver eyes shining faintly in the dark. She looked at Daniel with a mixture of fear and hope. Her lips trembled as she tried to form human words. "Not ordinary," she whispered. "We. Not street children." Daniel leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Then who are you? Why are hunters chasing you?" The middle sister grabbed the oldest girl's hand, shaking her head quickly. She spoke in their alien language, her voice urgent. It sounded like she was begging her not to reveal anything. The youngest pressed into her sister's, eyes wide, as if she knew the danger of even speaking the truth. But the oldest took a deep breath. Her small shoulders squared. "We are daughters," she whispered. "House. Lost house." Daniel frowned. "House? What do you mean?" The girl struggled for words, then touched her chest proudly. "Blood. Noble blood." Her voice cracked, but her eyes burned with a fierce light. Daniel's breath caught. He understood now. They were not just orphans, they were heirs, children of some alien noble family, maybe even royalty. And if that was true, then the hunters were not simple soldiers. They were assassins or agents, sent to erase them. "That's why they want you," Daniel muttered. "You're a threat to someone powerful." The oldest nodded slowly. "Father, mother, gone," she whispered. "Enemies. Kill house. We escape. Only we left." Her voice broke, and for the first time a tear slipped down her glowing cheek. The middle sister hugged her tightly. The youngest whimpered, her small voice soft like a broken bell. Daniel's chest tightened. He had thought they were just starving kids abandoned on the streets. But this was bigger, far bigger. He rubbed his forehead, realizing the weight of what he had stepped into. "So, you're hiding," he said softly. "Running for your lives?" "Yes," the oldest said, her small hands clenched. "Always running. Now hunters come. Always hunters." Daniel sat back, his thoughts racing. This was not just about kindness anymore. This was politics, power, bloodlines. If the truth got out, if the wrong people found them, it could mean chaos. Not just for them, but maybe for the whole city, maybe even for the galaxy. The middle sister looked at him, her eyes pleading. "You, help?" she asked in broken human words. Her voice was shaking, but her trust was clear. Daniel hesitated. He was just one man. He had no weapons, no allies, no plan. Yet when he looked at them, 3 sisters clinging to each other, 3 small lives hunted for what they were, he knew his answer. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'll help. I'll protect you." The youngest blinked at him, her glowing eyes wide. She whispered something soft in her language. Daniel didn't know the words, but he understood the feeling. Gratitude. The air shifted suddenly. A faint hum vibrated through the ground. Daniel's heart sank. He knew that sound. The hunters were close again, maybe using some kind of scanner to track the girl's unique energy. The oldest girl's face went pale. "They find us," she whispered. Daniel stood, his jaw tight. "Then we move," he said firmly. "We can't stop here." He offered his hand to the oldest. She hesitated, then took it, pulling her sisters up with her as they stepped out of the alley. Daniel's mind sharpened. The truth had changed everything. These girls were not just refugees. They were the last of a noble bloodline, and protecting them meant more than saving 3 children. It meant stepping into a battle that could shake the stars,